I'm Gavin, and this is MLS Fantasy Picks.
Before we get into round 3 picks, here's a quick round 2 recap. A great week for me. I ended with 100 points for round 2. I had a week rank of 269, and my overall rank is now 11. My budget increased from $103.4 million to $108 million. What went right this week? Well, first, I captained Messi, so he got us a 15, double that, got us a nice 30 points last round. And also Cucho, solid score of a 10 up top. I'm pretty pleased with the majority of my midfield. I think Espinoza got that assist taken away, but he's down to 6, which is, respectable. Gald, not so much. Alba, great 9 points. Reagan, 7 points. And what went wrong? So while this still was a great week, it could have been better. So when I was looking at my scores from below, I got that 7 from Thomas and he subbed on. But then I also had Melanda's 5. So I knew I wanted Melanda's 5 off the bench. And I had Alex Roldan, Reagan, and McGraw left to play. And I guess to be a little less risky, I took off Roldan instead of McGraw in case Seattle lost their clean sheet. Seattle kept their clean sheet, so if I kept Roldan and scrubbed McGraw instead, that would have been like an 8 or 7 point swing. So yeah, I wish I scrubbed McGraw, but either way, awesome week. Quick look at the MLS Fantasy Picks leagues. So looking at the MLS Fantasy Picks Open League, it's very close at the top of the table. Quick reminder, if you're watching this and still haven't joined the league, you can. Link is in the description below for the MLS Fantasy Picks Open League. And looking at our head-to-head league, there are still 32 undefeated teams. Well done, everyone in both leagues. It's going to be a great season. All right, now that we've got that taken care of, let's get into round 3 picks. As always, key considerations for the round. We've still got CONCACAF Champions Cup going on, and we're into the later stages, so maybe teams are taking a bit more serious, playing their starters. Keep an eye out on those lineups as they come out this weekend, just in case the teams do some rotation. Also, as well, as those games go on, there may be new injuries. Keep an eye out to make sure you're not starting anyone that's injured. And of course, value picks. We're in the early part of the game. Keep an eye out on those low-priced players that have scored big to ensure that you increase your value or your team's budget week over week. And also buy teams. So this week we've got Houston on buy if you want to use some of those players for your switcheroos, auto-roos, keeperoos. All right, let's take a look at goalkeepers. Premium, we've got Drake Callender. He's been doing great so far at the start of the season. Miami are on quite a streak. They're home against Montreal. I am a bit more impressed with Montreal this year. So while he is expensive, he could be a decent pick. I also like Schulte this week for a premium price point. Columbus are at home against Chicago. Haven't been too impressed by Chicago. Could be a good chance for a clean sheet. And then, surprise, we've got Sean Johnson from Toronto. Now, it may be hard to believe, but Toronto started the season with 2 clean sheets, and they're home against a Charlotte side who really is not known for their offense. So maybe if you want to spend a bit more money, I think Johnson's like $7 million. He could be a good clean sheet option. And going down to our standard keepers, I've got Carlos Coronel at home against Dallas. New York Red Bulls aren't known to let in too many goals, so I like this matchup at home for Coronel. And Andre Blake. Let's hope Andre Blake comes back this week. I think he's only about a 6.5, and they're playing Seattle. Philly are great at home, and that Union defense is so much better with Andre Blake at the back. Could be a good look. And then I've also got McMath at home against Colorado. Again, Colorado have not been too impressive, even though they had a really nice offseason with their new signings. I like McMath this week, though there could be, a good amount of goals with that Real Salt Lake Colorado rivalry. And I didn't see too many budget options this week due to, starting keepers coming back. So I've got Valdez here if you want to use him, as your buy player on the field, and you put your starting keeper on the bench, so that way you still have some flexibility should anything happen to your starting keeper. All right, let's take a look at defenders. Premium, surprise, it's Julian Gressel again. Miami's at home against Montreal, and Gressel has looked great, especially the last game linking up with Suarez. Could be a really good play. And then Alba as well. Alba, I think, is a bit 0.5 mil cheaper than Gressel if you don't want to spend too much money, but you want a really solid defensive option. And then I've got Robinson at home against DC. One of the later games, if you want to spend a good amount of money on a reliable defender, Robinson could be your guy. And then moving down to standard pricing, I've got Ely from Red Bull New York. So the Red Bull, they're at home against Dallas. As you saw, I had Coronel for keepers. I like Red Bull's defense. If you don't want to spend as much for Ely here, maybe look at a cheaper New York Red Bull defender. And then again, I've also got a Toronto defender. I wouldn't think I would be saying that at the start of the season, but they're home against Charlotte, and like I said before, they have kept clean sheets in both of their first 2 games, so maybe he could be a good look without spending too much money. And now we're going to move on to our budget defenders. So while I did highlight, Gressel, Alba, and Robinson up top, I would recommend spending the majority of your money on your midfielders and forwards this week. There's a lot of tasty matchups, especially on the forward side. So if you can, look for those budget defenders, try to get those price rises, and don't blow too much of your money on defenders because you've got a lot of good options on the offensive side. So saying that, I've got Malanda from Charlotte away at Toronto this week. So I like Malanda for the price rise, maybe not the matchup too much, but could be a good, good option if you want to raise your budget. And then Anelli, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but they're at home against Colorado. I think he's quite cheap at maybe a $5 million price point. And then I've got Junqua from FC Dallas, also below $5 million, I believe. They are away at New York Red Bull. Could be a dangerous matchup, but if you just need, a defender who's going to get you a few points, Junqua could be your guy. And then Bombito. So Colorado is away at Real Salt Lake, another maybe below 4.5 starter. See if he's playing. If you need a defender, he could be your guy. And then Markanich, not sure how to pronounce that. But St. Louis are away at Austin. Austin do not look good this season. If you also need another cheap defender, maybe there's a clean sheet chance in there. Even though Austin's at home, who knows? Could be a good option. All right, so as I mentioned before, this round I'll probably be spending a good amount of money on midfielders with maybe like one budget midfielder. So this week, it's fun to say, we've got Thiago Almada back in it. Atlanta are home against New England. Almada was a beast in fantasy last season. He's a huge part of that Atlanta offense. Always a good play when Atlanta are at home. And then Forsberg. So the New York Red Bull are home against FC Dallas. Forsberg seemed like a really integral part of this offense. And you're not breaking the budget too much if you want Forsberg this week. I've also got Espinoza. They're home against Vancouver. Espinoza is very dangerous on that wing, always creating chances. If he's not getting assists or goals, he's usually racking up bonus points. And Acosta, if you haven't learned by now, after the first couple of weeks, he's pretty much a lock, especially at home against DC United. And then Ricky Puig. Yes, LA are away, but have you seen that offense of Puig, Paintsell? It's just really fun to watch. So if you don't like Puig this week, maybe you pick up Paintsell. I like Puig. He was a great play last week as well. And then moving on to the standard pricing, I do like Bogusz against SKC at home. I think he's been playing more of the forward area, but he's listed as a midfielder in fantasy. So he'll probably generate a lot of scoring chances this week. So I like Bogusz. I also like Robert Taylor. He was involved a lot last week with, 5 goals from Miami. And he's not going to break your budget. I think he's like around the 8 million mark. And then Yal Yeboah. I watched that Columbus game last week, and Yeboah was very dangerous creating chances. He's not too expensive and could be a sneaky play this week. I've also got Quinn Sullivan. Quinn's really stepped up this year. I think he's playing around the right mid side for that Union Diamond, and he's just been really dangerous on the attack, creating a lot of chances, and he hustles. I like Quinn. Could be a good shout. Then finishing it off, not a huge fan of Luna. He really hasn't impressed too much this fantasy season, but he is a decent option that's not too expensive. And now looking at your budget plays, Barak Tarovic. I think he's around the 5 million mark. New England are away at Atlanta, but Barak Tarovic should be starting, and he's a decent option just to, get a solid midfielder for a low price. Herbers, again, could keep that price rise possibly. Not a huge fan of Herbers this week, but he's playing, and he's not too expensive. Gomez could be a better option. He wasn't too involved in those that 5-0 route against Orlando, but still not too expensive in starting. And then Choinière. So they are away at Miami this week, Montreal, but Choinière could be a sneaky play as well. If Montreal, fights for a little bit, they figure out what Miami's doing, Choinière could, get some points for you. All right, looking at forwards. Surprise, Lionel Messi. The Miami's home against Montreal. Messi has been crushing it this year. If you don't want to spend the money, there's some good other options available, but Messi is pretty much always a good play as long as he's, playing plenty. Cucho, as you've seen these past couple of weeks, Cucho has been crushing it in fantasy. Highly recommend him at home against Chicago. Denny Bouanga as well is at home against SKC. Hard to really take that last game serious in the snow, so I do like him at home against SKC. Arango, also a huge part of this Real Salt Lake attack. They're at home against Colorado. I like Arango as well this week. And Suarez crushed it last week. We'll see if he can continue that or if it was more of a fluky game against Orlando. But all 5 of these guys, I wish I could have started, more than 3 forwards this week. I really like a lot of them. Definitely try to spend your money on forwards. And then you've got Aaron Bupenza on the standard range. Since he are at home against Chicago, and Bupenza is not too expensive. And then I've got Van Zier or Elias Manuel from Red Bull at home against Dallas. I think that the Red Bull are starting to click a bit more, and they could be a good option if you're not looking to spend too much money. And then Adeniran, they're away. St. Louis is away at Austin, and Adeniran's been, coming up big with some nice goals. So I like him this week, and he's not too expensive. And finishing strong, our go-to, Mr. Seeley himself, FC Dallas away at Red Bull New York. Looking at him if you need just someone to put on your bench who's starting. Maybe he'll still get us a price rise, who knows? And then Kamungo. If you're not a fan of Seeley, Kamungo's also not too expensive and could be a good look. And finishing off with captains. First captain I've got, Thiago Almada. I am a bit hesitant. I really haven't played him yet this year in fantasy, so we'll see how they end up doing at home. I do like Lucho this week. Lucho's clutch, and he's not the last game of the week, which is where I have Mr. Messi. So it's a bit riskier if you wait to captain, or if you captain someone who's at like the last game of the week. If Messi doesn't play or if he's not starting, you're sort of rushed trying to figure out who you're going to captain next. So that's why I like Almada or Acosta a bit more this week. All right, so that wraps up our round 3 player picks and tiers. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, leave us a like, leave a comment down below. Let me know who you're picking this week or if you have any questions. And also keep an eye out. I'll be uploading some videos this week on the Switcheroo, Autoroo, and Keeperoo. So, as always, good luck, everyone.